Oh, yes. This is the Hardcore Marketing Show. I'm Casey Cheshire, your host for this epic journey. And today's show, sponsored by Cheshire Impact, on a mission to help people maximize their use of Pardot and Salesforce. CheshireImpact.com. Bam. And we're live. I am stoked to introduce you to my guest today. And he has gone through the ranks on the sales side. For all the marketers listening, this is one of those great, rare opportunities to just hear candid things from a sales expert, because he rose to the ranks, sales executive, manager. Finally, before where he's at now, he was a VP of sales and marketing. Left that and founded the Heretic Technology Group. So he's the CEO of that. Experienced digital technology executive, expert, sales genie, I would say. Brent Hale, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I almost lost myself in your introduction.
I know. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. It's interesting. I don't know if genie is the word, but I definitely been through the.
I know. It's like, what kind of coffee is this, huh?
I know.
This is gonna be tough, man. Yeah, give me
I love
15 minutes, your introduction gets that much crazier. So
I love it. Right? Yeah.
listen, I'm glad you're here because, I love sales. I'm a marketer. I love sales. I've had a chance to do a little bit of it. I think it's so valuable. It's so good to have that sales side here and to learn. And we were chatting earlier, and you even have your own way of finding and connecting. And actually, you now coach sales on how to do a better job of that. And a lot of that blends into how we can do a better job of marketing. It's all one big happy team, right? So the theme really today is around sales and marketing alignment, and also understanding your buyer, because I want to get to that unique approach that you take for getting sales to understand their buyers. So here is, hold on, picking it up here. This is Thor's hammer, which has a name apparently. So receive Thor's hammer and
Thank you.
yes, smash a myth for me. Smash a myth, bogus sales, marketing strategy, whatever the case.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this is kind of a myth, but the other side of the myth is, there's kind of this idea of that sales or cold calling is dead. And most will say that myth in itself is dead. I think the opposite. I think actually cold calling is essentially dead.
So it's dead.
Yeah,
not
I do.
A good way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sure it can be effective in some way, but the reality is in our day, time is our biggest enemy. And the amount of time that it takes you to actually do effective cold calling, you're spending a lot of time. I mean, putting the effort into that, and then what are you really getting out of it? I mean, yes, occasionally you might get somebody. Yes, you might leave a message. It might call you back. But I mean, that you can't get enough volume for it to really be effective, especially in this day and age. And with things like cold calling, I just simply revert back to kind of my own. Who I am as a person. And, if somebody calls me in this day and age and I don't recognize the number, I am not picking up the phone.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of the situation, right?
Totally.
So it takes you significantly more effort in a cold calling environment to be effective than I think other avenues and other technologies that are available to us now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I love the way you said that. Because you hear that debate all the time. Is cold calling dead? Is it dying? Is it effective? And, I've seen some places where they call it effective, but is, a 0.5% growth year over year effective? Not really. You're not even keeping up with inflation. But the thing you said was, in today's sales, time is the enemy. It takes so much time to do cold calling.
It does. Well, everything kind of takes time, but cold calling is such a manual process. I mean, even if you have a dialer, and to me, if you have a dialer, then you're probably cold calling wrong anyway, right? You're not doing the proper research. You're not doing what you should be doing anyway. But everything is a time suck, and so it's really about where can you put the most valuable pieces of your day. And if you sit there and you just have a group that smiles and dials, or if you just sit there and smile and dial, you're probably not getting nearly as much out of that day or out of that block as you could by doing another form of outbound.
This is cool. I like this because this is, and for everyone listening, Brent coaches sales on how to do a better job of this and set up process. We're going to get into all this. But if one of the first things he's coaching sales to do is stop wasting your time, right, or be more efficient about it. And, for anyone on the marketing side, sales is all about this time value calculation in your head. Is it worth calling this particular prospect 9 more times or
Right.
doing several more demos with them if they're going to close or not.
Right.
It's all about prioritizing your time in sales. So this is so key. You're coaching them on how to prioritize their time. In marketing, we can then help out with that, right? With marketing automation, I'm sure, process optimization is big for you. So it's all these
Yep.
things that come into play, but it's that whole concept. I love that you brought this up. The whole concept of better managing that human time. You can scale computer time, but not the human stuff.
Correct. Yeah. You don't get that time back. So it's, when you sit down and you have blocks in your day, what order are those blocks comprised of? What are you doing? Right. And if it is cold calling, again, it's what's your objective in the cold call. And sure, if you go out and you build a list of 10 companies and they're all C-level people and you have a very specific message, sure. Okay. Like go out, cold call them, and
Right.
have that specific message to those 10 C-level people. But from a traditional sense of what cold calling is, of just pounding the phones and leaving messages and kind of doing your 15-second pitch or whatever it might be, to me, I believe that that's a significant waste of time, especially in this day and age when you have other ways that you can optimize your time and get more out of it. So I firmly believe that the idea of sitting somebody down and asking them to make $100 a day is a complete waste of time and money. I
Totally.
think there are significantly better ways to do it.
This is so interesting because on the marketing side, we have the same challenge. I mean, I remember working at a company, and I've told this story before, but the idea of there's a CEO that once asked me, how many emails did I send this month? And I said,
Right.
"I knew the
Right.
answer. I don't
Yeah.
normally know the answer to things, but I
Sure.
did. About a million. It's like, oh, about a
Yeah.
million emails. And he was like,
Yeah.
oh, next month, do 1.5 million, right?
Yeah.
As if to the same people, as if
Right.
it's like the cold call of the marketing side, as if getting
Right.
another 500,000 emails is going to encourage you to buy that $45,000 thing that you need 9 people to approve. It's like
Correct.
that doesn't
Yeah.
happen. We're not selling ASIC shoes. We're selling complicated stuff here. It's a complex B2B sale, and
Yeah.
that activity minds. I mean, there's some value to understanding. Some parts of the funnel.
Yeah.
How many activities have you done in sales, but really it's the qualified activities. It's not.
Well, and that's exactly right. Yeah, you get into
Yeah.
kind of those metrics piece of it thing. Like I believe in metrics in terms of like once we start doing things, we can understand metrics and we can understand how much it takes to get somebody on the phone or how much it takes to get somebody to respond to you, right? But overall, metrics to me is kind of just smoke and mirrors
Yeah.
because I can tell my reps all day long go out and make 100 phone calls, or you're required to make 100 phone calls because that 100 phone calls is going to get you activity. And it's like, but if I don't know the law of averages, if I don't understand my company's law of averages, then I'm just giving you an arbitrary number, right? And
Yeah.
then at the same time, if I'm then coming down on you for not hitting that number, all you're doing is creating an environment of somebody creating activity because they don't want to get yelled at, or they don't want to get talked to about not hitting their number, versus somebody going out and hitting the phones because they're looking for actual results, right? So I think I worked at, and when I kind of talked about me, I worked at a company when I was first starting just in sales, and they had very specific metrics. 125 connects a week will get you success, but that was 40 years of data that
So
they
they had the
understood that,
data
right?
to
So
know.
they understood, okay, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be successful, but we know that our most successful people did 125, are doing 125 connects a week. And right. So that information is leading them to say, this is what success could look like if you're struggling. Right.
Tell you
So
what, break that down. Like, take a step back.
yeah,
Calculating out that kind of numbers, I think it's really important for marketing to hear that sales side, because I think this reflects into even our funnel. But
yeah.
we talk about that. So you need to establish that. You mentioned you need to know the conversion metrics or the metrics of what leads to the action you want. Maybe just talk more about that.
Yeah, your law of averages, right? I mean, the reality is in sales, the numbers are king, right? Volume is king. It
Sure.
doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter how valuable it is. The more people that you reach out to, the more you're going to get in return. I mean, that's just the reality of
Yeah.
anything, right? So, but if you have reps that are on your team or reps within your organization, there are some reps that can be very successful with smaller numbers than somebody else, right?
Yeah.
But if you have the law of averages that say, well, we know based on our business that if we reach out to this many people, then you'll likely hit your number. And that's based on data. Now we can take the reps who are struggling, look at the numbers and say, listen, like we're not forcing you to do that, but you're not being successful. So let's go to the thing that we know
Yeah.
has been successful, right? And then so now let's focus on the activity. Go out, let's do 125 activities or whatever it might be, right? Let's see how much that changes your success or your interaction with your prospects,
That's
right?
cool. So
Yeah,
it's almost like, you reach out to at least 125, people on your list, in your patch or whatever, this week. And we know
yeah.
that if you do that, typically
Yeah,
speaking,
because
you'll
that
get,
company is saying, hey, we know historically that okay, for every 100 people that we reach out to, one person responds, right? Or 10 people respond, or
sure.
whatever it might be, right? So in order for you to be successful and hit your number, ideally you need to have X amount of opportunities, right?
Right.
So you kind of break it down to like, how many people do we have to reach out to get responses, and then how many responses do we need to get X amount of opportunities, and then how many opportunities do we need to get X amount of closes,
Yeah.
right? So it all trickles down. But if you just go out and say, hey, sales team, go out and have a ton of activity because that's all that matters, and then that's all you focus on,
Oh, yeah.
then now you're just creating an environment of just people creating activity because they don't want to get yelled at for not having enough activity, right? Whereas in
Right.
many cases, if you're diligent and you do it the right way, you can actually get more accomplished with less activity. I mean, a lot of people can, right?
Right.
So my whole thing with the metrics and the activity is, have some data behind it that tells you that that's success if you're gonna try to have your reps do that.
Right.
And same with marketing, right? Like, I mean, marketing, sending emails. Okay, well, let's have appropriate information on the amount of emails that we're sending and what that means for return, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you get marketing teams just sending a whole bunch of stuff out, throwing it against the wall, and just hoping it all sticks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's and as much as automation kind of automates that for you, it's still a time suck to create those and to send those out and to build the list, right?
Yeah. It creates a bad experience for the recipient too.
Very bad
Who
experience.
may decide he doesn't want to talk to you when the time comes because marketing blasted him so many times.
Yeah, and that happens all the time, right? I mean, there's so many times you go out and you look at something and research something, even a small amount, and then all of a sudden you're just getting a bunch of marketing material from that.
Yeah.
If I'm not ready to buy now, chances are I'm probably even when I am ready to buy, I might not go to you just because like I'm like, you guys have just sent me stuff that's just so useless to me over the last 6 months, like,
Yeah.
and it kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth, right? So I think that's kind of, the metrics piece is key for me because people always talk about it, and I believe in metrics once we understand what we're doing. But just to arbitrarily go out and say, I need you to do 150 activity, and it's like, well, why? And if you don't
Yeah.
have an answer to the why, well, then why are you telling them to do 150 activities, right?
Right. Right.
So,
I can see how cool that would be then, because you can say, okay, normally 125 calls equals, you know, 12 demos, and
yeah,
12 demos usually leads to 6 wishful thinking, 6
yeah,
follow-on calls. And then you can look at that funnel, we call it a funnel, you probably call it a pipeline. You can look at that and then see. Now, let's say that the rep is underperforming and they did hit 125 calls, but out of those 125 initial calls, they have like no demos. You're like, oh, okay, that's where we can focus the coaching, the sales coaching and all that, because somehow you're doing the first part, but you're not getting to the second part. So maybe we can fix how you're doing it.
yeah. And I think if you're a sales manager, you should probably be teaching some of that stuff up front anyway, right? And
Right.
talking about content, talking about
Right.
value and stuff. So really, when it comes to a rep and you're talking about activity with the rep, you're saying, hey, okay, like you're not doing the activity. And we've already taught you the content piece and the value piece. So now let's get the activity going. If you have enough activity and you're still not successful, then we need to look at some other things or areas, right? But a lot of managers will go in and not really teach and not really talk about value, and not really talk about messaging, and not really talk about the appropriate way to sell. And then they just talk about the numbers, and they're like, well, don't worry about it. Volume is king. And it's like, yeah, I mean, but okay. But if that's the only thing you're putting on me as a rep, then the only thing I think you care about is volume. Therefore, I'm probably going to, at some point, just care about making sure that you see my volume and not my outcomes. Right. And
Right.
then, and you running that with MQL, the MQLs on the marketing side too, right? MQL. I mean, everyone's just MQL, MQL. What is marketing called, right? And then they're like, okay, well, in
Yeah.
order for us to be successful on the marketing side, we need X amount of MQLs, whatever that means, right? And then you find out that they're not really marketing qualified leads at all.
Mm,
Marketing is triggering them as MQLs because they need to hit that MQL number because they were told they need to hit that MQL number, right?
right.
Um, so I really think it's about quality and quantity, but quality first, and the quantity comes, after the fact once we're able to actually know what quantity even means,
Sure. I
right?
mean, it's a process, right? You're just optimizing along the chain. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, dude, we got into this because we were talking about cold calling. And so by looking at this chain of events and seeing that, cold calling and dropping that into the pipeline is such a horrible conversion rate all the way out the end. You're like, it's dead. I mean, not even dying. This thing is DOA. Well, tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just think that you can go out and pound the phones all day long, right? Again,
Yeah.
it really comes down to time for me.
Yeah.
I just think your time is far better spent doing other things that are going to get you more results. I mean, you can absolutely sit there and pound the phone, and sure, you will get results. I'm not saying that you won't. I just don't think you're going to get the same amount of results. You're going to spend a significant amount of time trying to cold call and wasting a significant amount of time for a very small percentage of return, right? So, and because you only have so much time in your day, you have to sit back and say, okay, where is my time best spent? So it's not necessarily the idea of picking up the phone is dead, but it's the idea like of where can you put your time in your day and get the most out of it. And I
Right.
think when people say go and pound the phones, to me, I believe that is a time suck. That's a waste of time. I mean, everyone's going to send you to voicemail. Everyone's going to send, right? I can get the same results by putting stuff in an email and sending to them and asking them if they
Right.
want to talk, and they're going to get back to me whether I left them a message on the voicemail or whether I sent them an email, right?
Yep.
Most likely anyway. Um, so that's kind of where I'm saying cold calling is dead from the perspective of just straight up lead generation, trying to call. I think it's a waste of time in your day, and you have such little time in your day. I think that salespeople should be focusing on other things.
So, I mean, is this like the dot 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 where marketing comes in? Like we supply you with those warmed up, ready-made leads and all
No, see,
good, or what's your take?
yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think marketing's great because if you're doing it right, you're getting people to get your website and they're filling out forms and it sends to somebody, right? But I think that's actually almost kind of one of those other things where marketing now has this burden put on them to get all the leads for sales guys,
Interesting.
or for
Yeah.
sales folks. So now you really just have closers on the sales side instead of what traditional ISR or SDR teams were designed to do, and that was to do the grunt work for the sales executives, right? That was to go out and make the cold calls, or to go, or nowadays to go out and actually do the research and send the appropriate emails and find information that we can move people through the funnel, move through people around and identify and, get to where we're going, right? And then the
Sure.
people who say, hey, this sounds great, but not now, the SDR teams are designed to, okay, I need to nurture that person. I need to follow up with that person, right? This sounds great, but not now. This sounds great, but budget season is for 9 months, right? It was originally designed that you would hire SDR teams to do those tasks,
Right.
warm that lead up, and then when it was ready, have the conversation and say, great, I'm going to pass you my sales exec. They'll help you better understand the value here, right? Now, when that happens, all we're doing is say, okay, marketing, have fun, here you go. And now marketing has put that burden that I now have to keep that person warm. But how does marketing do that other than just send them a bunch of marketing material? Because that's what marketing is supposed to do, right? So now you lose that personal touch completely.
Oh, right. Got
Um,
it.
so I do think that there's, give and take with the marketing and sales in terms of, whether you put that on sale marketing, but I think nowadays marketing has this huge burden on them to get sales all these leads, and then sales starts getting upset when marketing doesn't have enough MQLs, and then you kind of go back to the MQLs and you just start, and then it becomes a volume game. right? Because
Sure.
so
Sure.
uh,
There's something interesting you said too, though. I wanted to go back and talk about that. So the idea of, traditionally SDRs would call out sales, what, development reps? Is that sales?
yeah, sales development reps, business development reps, whatever it
Sure.
might
So
be.
these guys would be the ones going out, cold calling, and then warming up the people, then kind of doing that warm handoff to a sales exec, sales
Yeah.
rep. Uh, Now, if they're not ready right now, passing it back to marketing, um, typically that's where marketing then goes, okay, cool, we're going to nurture these guys for 9 months. It's no skin off our backs. We've got a 9-month drip campaign, and we can send out emails. And I think a lot of what happens too gives marketing a bad rap. Don't just blast your prospect for 6 months, but you can have that email come from the rep they were talking to. But is that not enough? You're saying to
Um,
boost that
well, so you can have it. You can have it come from the rep that you're talking to. So, but I think that's done wrong because I mean, I don't know. I, at least I know if I get an email from a rep that I had talked to or from a rep that I had engaged with over time. I mean, I know it's a marketing email. I know that rep is not sending it to me. I know that it's marketing just sending it out on behalf of them. It's a very marketing style email. I mean, I was looking at that in my inbox today. It was as I was kind of prepping for this because this company I talked to and this one guy who I had about a 3-minute conversation with just keeps sending me emails and they keep hitting my spam box, which is fine, but he's not sending the emails. They're not
Yeah.
related to me. He's not talking to me directly. It's basically just marketing sending emails with his name on it.
What was in the email? Because this is interesting. I don't know if you even have it with you.
I do
You should forward it over to me. We won't we won't
actually. So
we won't
I
punish the
will.
person,
Yeah.
but it'd be interesting to see that email, because oftentimes in marketing, we're even talking and training over here and saying, like, look, there's a difference between that pretty looking marketing email and a personal email. And I think too often we blur that on the marketing side. Like, oh, here's a nice little logo above this personal email. It's like, dude, when have you ever seen a logo above a personal email? Never. Right. So that
Yeah.
line gets blurred a lot, but somehow it's showing is you're alerted to the fact that this is not really them sending you an email kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think everybody is, right? I
You
don't
think
think
so?
anybody's under this fake assumption that, or this crazy real assumption that these people are really sending them
I tell you
emails,
what,
right?
man, they are when we send them.
Which is great, right? So I think that's fantastic if you're doing
Yeah.
it right, right?
Yeah.
But
Sure.
but this ends up and it says, and I'll forward it to you, and I
Yeah.
get
Forward
these
to me.
things all the time, right? But the
Can you
subject
send it
line
right
is,
now? I'll look at it. I'll look at it while you're.
selling any language is what it is, and to me it's like, well, you don't understand the value. You have no idea why I initially even talked to you. So
Okay.
how is it going to be important for me? Plus this is clearly just a templated email, and I don't mean templated in the sense that it was templated with some autofill stuff. I mean it's a straight up
Is there
marketing.
like pretty graphics and stuff on it?
Yeah, and there's a button at the bottom that says,
Ah.
go do it, right? So
Yeah. So that
so
it's clear that rep wasn't sending it to you. It's clear that you just got thrown in nurture. Does it look like it's from him though? Does it have like a signature and stuff on there too?
No, I don't
Okay.
believe it.
So it's just the
No,
company.
so it's just his name, right?
Oh, they're just using his name. Oh, that's so gross, man. Okay, I see the email here.
Right, and because he was the one that I talked to, right?
Yeah.
Um, I
Like,
mean,
look,
there's
right
there's
away,
a
man.
huh?
Logo right at the top of the email.
Yeah,
Not personal. That's all you need. That's all anyone needs to see. Is the very first line. It's like, it's a logo,
right,
not personal.
exactly,
Got it. And then
exactly
it
right.
says,
Yeah,
"Hi, Brent," and blah blah blah. And it's actually a nicely designed, content
totally.
aside, and they used his name. And we always tell people, like, don't do that, because you might open one email, but then you'd be like, oh, Adam here doesn't even have his last name. Adam here doesn't even have control of his own inbox. So they're not going to look at the actual rep. If Adam actually was going to email you in person later, you may not even look at it, because you're like, nah, more spam from Adam. So it like really degrades that name to mix and match. It's like, either make it look really like it came from a human, or
Mhm.
don't. And like we even say, like this kind of email should come from the team at Better Proposals, right? Like, not
That's right.
Adam.
Like I would rather see it come from marketing than
Yeah.
from this individual,
So
right?
we don't like to say marketing, just like we don't like to say sales. So we come from
Sure,
like
sure. But
success.
whatever
Yeah.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I would
Sure.
rather you just be deadly upfront with me in terms of what you're sending me than for you to try to mask it as if the original rep that I was talking to was sending me an email.
Yeah.
But to me, this is an abstract numbers game that this company is playing, and it's like, well, let's see how much stuff we can throw in front of this guy until he's interested again,
Right.
instead of the rep knowing that there was a level of interest from me at some point, knowing that I was interested in this, where's the rep actually contacting me saying, hey, Brent, I know we talked a little bit ago, it seemed like you were really interested. I'd love to talk about new features that we have going on, some new things, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about what
Yeah.
level of interest, right? So to me, like, that would engage me significantly more.
Yes.
Well, it would engage me, period, whereas
Yeah.
this isn't engaging me at all,
At all.
right? Because now, not only, even if I was interested in the value that he's sending, I got to go through this process of clicking the button, filling out the form for what, right? Like, so to me,
Oh,
this
gee.
happens all the time, and it's you're almost making people go through the work of having to like putting in an effort to have to buy from
Oh,
you, is you putting in an effort to sell to me,
yeah.
right? So it just becomes a number game. Well, if you're not interested now, so be it. We'll just send you a bunch of stuff till you are interested. We got a bunch of other people who
Oh, it's
who
so gross,
will
man.
be buying now, right? And I talk about this a lot with sales and marketing, is that I believe that kind of thought of that personal touch from the rep has been lost.
Agreed.
If
Yeah.
somebody says, and we go back to the SDR BDR thing and what they originally brought in for, because if a BDR is talking to them or an SDR is talking to them, and they kind of talk about the value, and they're like, this sounds really awesome. That person now knows your brand, right? Which is great. They've already said they're interested in your brand,
Yeah.
right? So you as the rep have this understanding of a little bit of the why they're interested in your brand, or why they're interested in your solution. So for you to then, for them to then say, well, I'm not ready to buy now, but this is interesting to me, that's the easiest close you'll ever have later on, right? It's not going to happen now, but he's not ready, he or she is not ready to buy now, right? But that's the easiest close you'll have later on, because you just follow up with them and talk about certain things, right? And then when they're ready, you can talk about the better value and more value that you've been doing over the last 6 months or whatever, right? But if I talk to somebody, or if a rep talks to somebody and they say, hey, now's not the time, budget season isn't until next April, can we talk closer to that? You better personally reach out to that person and say, hey, Casey, we talked 9 months ago. You said budget season is now. We've done some really awesome things over the last 9 months too. Love to share them with you. Is now a good time to chat when, what's your calendar look like, right? I'm going to engage with you. If I send that to marketing, and over the next 9 months until budget season, all marketing does is just blast me with templated stuff, I'm more likely going to be like, what the heck, right? So that's kind of, so yes, but to revert back to kind of your question on the marketing side, I do believe though there are certain people that, yes, you say, okay, this is a really good person, they understand a brand, not ready, I don't know that there's any personal touch here, like, let's send them to marketing, and marketing, I'd appreciate it if you could kind of get some information in front of them. But even with that, kind of what I try to talk to my clients about is, make sure you're talking to marketing about why this person is interested. And then marketing should be creating buckets of campaigns based on these value points, not based on just random value of the company, right? It's, this person was interested in this. This is what they're looking for. This is why we're, top on their list. Let's make sure we get them some content that relates to them, right? Nope. Are you muted, Casey? I can't hear
Totally muted, man. Rookie mistake. Drinking my water over here. Lost in conversation, but
you.
yeah, no, it's interesting because this is the kind of thing. Put them into a drip campaign that actually matters.
Yeah.
So many times one of the things we talked about a lot this past year was segmentation, understanding your buyers, what
Yep.
groups to put them in. And, one of the best things is when they express, either on the form if you're asking it, or you have ways of tagging product
Sure.
interest, or maybe like situation, the business case, or that's sometimes the magic that sales can come up with. A phone call with a prospect finding out they're about to get audited by Adobe,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's the hot button. They should get no other drip but the fact, like, what's an audit like, how to avoid it. Here's some prep work for it. Like, we know all about this. Obviously, we could help you now, or, preventing this in the future. Like,
Sure.
nothing but that, right? Like, they've expressed this is what they're interested in. Let's not go off on a tangent. So the email you got, were you selling in any language, currency, or tax system? Is that
No,
remotely?
no, this is not even remotely close to anything that I think about at all,
I
right?
was like, it sounds boring, but you know what? Like, I just have to bring this up. This email, guys, it's so gross. The call to action button at the bottom is go to their website, and when I click on it, guess. And by the way, you never do that. You go to a landing page. Come on, people. But then when I click on it, you go to a login. You go to a freaking
Yeah.
login. Do you know your
So that's
login
what
for
I'm
that?
saying. Like they make you work to purchase from them.
Yeah, man.
Um,
Oh,
and and that process should be super easy, right? Like even to our conversation here, even if this individual did want to send me marketing material as him, make it based on what we talked about, right?
yeah.
Make it based on what the value is that we discussed. I do a lot of demoing. I do a lot of looking at different softwares and stuff. A, just so I can understand how people are interacting with their clients or
Yeah.
their prospects, and B, so I can understand, what other people are doing out there that is similar to kind of how I'm talking about things. And I went and did 3 of these softwares that are automation style softwares, and in almost every scenario was exactly the same. I just got an email back that asked me 3 or 4 questions that I took as, okay, you're qualifying me as a now buyer or a not now buyer. And if I'm not a now buyer, you don't care. And if I'm a now buyer, my guess is we're going to have a conversation started, tomorrow, right?
Right.
But what about, like, but the questions that they were asking in the email was not even, and I responded back to all of them being like, none of these points that you're talking to are why I'm interested in your product, right? But you would know that if somebody just got on the phone or emailed me personally and said, really glad you're interested, love to learn about why you're interested, what your pain points are, talk to me about that. And then let's talk about your solution as it relates to my pain points, right? Not just assume that I have all the same pain points as somebody else, right?
Right.
Um, and when I was managing and as I do, if I have a rep that if an MQL or a lead form comes in, that rep doesn't pick up the phone and call that person like immediately. I mean, I'm furious, right? Like, why wouldn't you? Like, that is the easiest sell that you're ever going to have in your life. Like, why wouldn't you just pick up the phone and see if you can start that conversation that second, right?
Yeah.
And if they can't, then leave it. Then that's a warm email, or excuse me, voicemail that you can leave.
Sure.
Simply, hey, you filled out a form, love to chat with you, give me a call directly. Like that, to me, those are that's like the lost art of sales.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind blowing to me.
So many studies have been shown that calling a lead within the first hour, within the first 30 minutes, 10 minutes. I've been at some big companies before where they track it down, not to the seconds per se, but in like sub 10 minutes, sub 5 minutes. You've got some amazing connect rates. Why? Because they're like on your site right now. They're doing the research right now. And people like to binge, it's like you don't go to Netflix or HBO and watch one episode of Game of Thrones. Come on. No, you watch the whole season.
That's that's
So if
right.
people are in the zone doing the research, then hit them, like see if you can help them, like, hey, like, white glove service. It's almost like, you remember that show, Mr. Deeds? Have you
Oh
seen that
yeah,
movie?
yeah,
Yeah,
good.
like his butler. He'd be, I really could use a cocoa or something. And like,
That's
the guy would just,
funny.
here, sir. And like, he'd creepily sneak up on him.
Yeah, well, it's and that's exactly right, right? I mean, hit them while they're hot, right? It's funny you
Yeah.
say Mr. Deeds. We had talked about me hiking the Appalachian Trail, right? I had so one of the women I hiked the Appalachian Trail was the
Wait.
producer.
You hiked the Appalachian, the whole thing?
Did, yeah.
Oh, snap.
So we had
Holy
so there's
tangent,
like 11
Batman.
of us. What's that?
I said, holy tangent, Batman. I don't know if I can come back from this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
We
So we
gotta
can come
talk.
back to that, but
No, we
it
gotta
was
talk. Okay,
really
yeah.
interesting. But
Yeah.
the Mr. Deeds is the producer of that movie. One of the women that I went on that trip with, her husband was actually the producer of that movie. So it's
Wow.
funny that that's the particular movie that you had that you talked about. But I'm trying to look here because I think that I actually have some stats around responses.
Oh yeah. And while
One
you're
second.
looking, I'll just say like this is important for sales, but also for marketing. Because if we're thinking, okay, you've got a hot one on a form right now, if it's the right kind, it's not just like they're peddling or something, but like a quote request form or demo request form to have that go right over to sales
Yep.
and not have a human doing the routing. A lot of folks on this show have like Pardot and Salesforce. So man, you have Pardot going boom right over to sales, and then it auto sorts it, puts it where it needs to go, the right rep, and then even alert them, send them an email, ring bells, flash lights.
Yeah, well, so when I was coming up, it was when somebody would fill out a lead form, that lead form, if I was the rep, if that was my territory or my vertical, I mean that would come directly to me. So
Yeah.
as the sales rep, I was able to respond immediately to the lead form, right?
Right.
And right now, what I'm seeing is that no, people are actually creating these inbound teams to take all the inbound leads that come in like that and then disperse them appropriately.
Okay. Yeah.
And as with anything, time kills all deals, right? And even if it's not a real deal yet, like that, those multiple steps that the buyers have to go through to purchase something, I could almost guarantee you that if you did a test and one group had an inbound sales team that you had to go through the ringer to get to a rep, and the other one went directly to the rep, I
Yeah.
can almost guarantee you that the one going directly to the rep is getting the sale
Oh,
almost every single
100%,
time.
right? I mean, what do they say? Like the first person to call usually wins, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
First
I've
person
won.
you talk to? Yeah.
Yep, I've won tons of big deals just simply based on the fact that you were the first person. You were the first person to contact me and the quickest to contact me. Therefore, I felt most confident with you. This is the stat is, and it's 433 companies. I don't know like what the return, but 7% responded in the first 5 minutes after a form submission. More than half didn't respond within 5 business days. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me, right? More than
Wait, so
half of the company,
so 7% did it right away?
7% responded in the first 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yep. And then
Now, was it responded to an email or was it responded to like a phone call?
form submission.
Okay, they submit a form, but then what? Sales calls them or sales is emailing them?
So I don't know. I don't know the
Yeah.
stats on whether it was an email, but I just know that they responded in some capacity within the first 5 minutes after
Awesome.
form submission. And then, but the crazier part is that more than half didn't respond for 5 days.
Yeah. So
Right.
talking back to your thing about time, if you're not getting
Yeah.
them while they're hot, you may not get them.
Yeah, I mean, if
Not
you're not
happen.
responding to them in 5 business days, then then that's probably a problem. I mean, if I'm
Yeah.
coming out and I'm looking for a software and I'm going to fill out a form, I'm doing it for a specific reason. I'm not doing
Right.
it just for the heck of it, right? So if you respond to me, I'm going to understand the value and I'm going to build a relationship with you faster. Where if somebody responds to me in 7 days, I'm almost going to be like, I don't even remember filling out a form for you.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
that's a little
totally.
bit aggressive, but kind of the idea, right? So, um, it is really interesting to me that you bring up that point because I think what I see now is a lot of companies, marketing companies, everything falls to marketing, and the marketing has this huge burden of like, oh, well, we have to do everything for sales now, like we have to get them the MQLs, and not only do we have to do that, all the inbound stuff now has to come to us and we have to try to qualify it, and that's not their job. That was never intended to be marketing's job.
Right. It's more of a
um,
prequel, right? It's like maybe we can ask them some questions, but you need to get to a human, especially if they want to talk to someone or you
Well,
need that
even
happen
yeah,
quick.
and even then though, it's like, well, marketing did their job. Marketing did their job to get them interested, right? Now they're interested, they filled out the form, here you go, sales. Like that was my job. My
Yeah.
job was for them to know our brand and to know who we are and get them interested. They are interested, go turn it into an opportunity, right? Um, so so I do feel like a lot of that happens in these demos that I do. That's exactly what they do. An inbound person reaches out to me, and then the sales rep had to cancel twice on me in the demo, which was fine. It is what it is. But the sales rep didn't even contact me personally. It was the inbound rep that contacted me to tell me. And
Uh, Come
so
on,
again,
man. That's like that football thing. Come on, man.
it's crazy to me. So
Jeez.
yeah, so it's interesting to kind of see all this stuff as I go through it.
No doubt. And, and all those experiences probably help you out because now you got your own gig, right? You got your own company you've created. And I
Yeah.
read something about the Maverick program, which got me thinking like Top Gun and, cue the soundtrack and the olive scene and all that stuff. So what's the deal? Like, what are you doing now? And what's this Maverick thing?
Yeah, it's funny. So Maverick kind of ties into the name. So Heretic is the company, and I actually developed Heretic because I had worked for multiple different companies. I'd worked for several startups, and all really really good experiences. I learned a ton. I learned a lot about small companies. I learned a lot about big companies. I learned about a lot about mid market type deals. I learned a lot about enterprise type deals. Right. So and I got to see how operational systems were built and then how they were torn apart. And
Yeah.
so when I started Heretic, the idea was that honestly, I just felt like people were engaging with customers incorrectly. I felt like there was a better way to do it, and that people had lost sight of the customer first approach. People had lost sight of really that the customer is the most important piece, and that you need to make sure that you're helping them through their process, because they're coming to you because they don't have that expertise, so you have to help them
Hmm.
through that process. That's why they want to talk to you. So I felt like that was being lost, so I said, you know what, I'm just going to go do it, and do it how I believe that customers should be engaged, and kind of go back to some of my old school roots of selling, and what I believe is working and what I believe is broken in the system, fix it. And Heretic, by the definition itself, is a person holding an opinion at odds with what is generally accepted.
Yeah.
Um, so that fell right into A, why I started the company, but B, really who I am as a person, right? I think very much outside of the box. I don't like to necessarily be a follower in the sense of just because somebody else is doing it, I should be doing it, right? I believe in,
Yeah.
kind of
Amen to
forging,
that, man.
yeah, like kind of forging your own path and saying, okay, like, but you're doing it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right way to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong way to do it, right? It just means that it's the way that works for you,
Hmm.
right? What's wrong and what could be done better. We can start to kind of go back to traditional selling. um, then Maverick really kind of is essentially the same definition of Heretic, in that it's just a person who kind of beats at their own drum, like a person that
Interesting.
like a maverick, right? They go out and they do their own thing. And what
You
I
know, I
like about
love that. I love that image of, like this is what you're doing, but actually this is what works. And there's a lot of that happening in marketing and sales where people just sort of cold calling is one of them, right?
yeah,
What we always
yeah,
did. We did 20 years ago, so let's just keep doing it. More
yeah.
activity,
I mean,
guys.
that's exactly right. You're
Yeah.
100% right. And so my idea is like, well, what is wrong with kind of just going at it your own way, right? And I have lots of conversations with people where I talk about this stuff, and they're like, man, like I'm not sure that I've really come up like with that thought process, but you're 100% right, because you're kind of inserting this different thought into their head, and kind of saying, well, like, think about it this way, right? And consider it this way. And we kind of get stuck in this rut of we have to do the marketing thing and the marketing automation. And yes, that's good. But if we haven't closed the loop with sales and they're not a cohesive unit, then marketing really is going to struggle, right?
Right.
And I truly do believe that sales these days is putting too much on marketing, and
Interesting.
forcing them to really take on a lot of the burden for new business. And um, so, so to kind of back to the company. So as we did that, I had started Maverick because I was realizing that there was all these automation tools out there, but people weren't, they were using it for marketing automation.
Right.
Nobody was doing the nurtures and the follow-ups anymore from a sales perspective. Nobody was actually going out and just asking people for their business, right? They're like, oh, we got
Hmm.
to get creative with all this marketing and crazy stuff, right? And we get like all these weird neat things, right? And that's awesome, right? But that's marketing's job to do that as in addition to, right?
Right.
Here marketing, and we can talk about this, as we go. But for me, marketing and sales has a similar endpoint mission in their message, but their
Yes.
message itself really should be totally different, right? I mean,
How
marketing
so?
is here. Well, so marketing is here's our brand, here's our awesome, here's what we believe in, here's why we're an organization, here's why we do what we do, right? When you think this solution or this thing, we want you to think our brand. When you think our brand, I want you to think this, right? Sales message is, hey, here's your problem, here's our solution, can we talk so I can earn your business,
Can't marketing
right?
do that too?
Yeah, no, they can, but I think that they're doing it at the same time, right?
Okay.
So I think by them kind of sending out and talking about the brand and why we're such a good company and why we do what we do and what makes us us, right? And it's just about, it's brand recognition and solution recognition that we can do these things, and here's why we're great, right? And here are the
Sure.
numbers, data behind it, right? And then sales is just like, I'm going out and I'm actually asking for your business. I'm physically asking you if
Sure.
I can earn your business and what that would take, right? So one's more of a broad approach, and whereas the other one's more of a direct approach. And I think there's a lot of information that you can gain by just asking somebody for their business, by just saying, "Hey, here's what we do. I think that we can help you. Can we talk?" Right?
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of information out of that.
The only thing I'd say though is that like I'd say the bad marketing, the marketing you described would be something I would want people to avoid, right? Just the brand, like all about me, 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 me. I mean, to your point, if we can help echo, it's all about the customer answering their challenge and problem. I mean, you didn't want to read that stupid email from that company because it was stupid. It was about them, Oh, look at us. We can do multiple languages and taxes. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, how does that help me?
Well, so yeah, well, and I think that's exactly right, right? But the problem
Yeah.
with marketing is that you don't know what those people, what the value is. So it's impossible for me, this guy or this individual or this company is sending me that email because they don't know what my value is, right?
I see what
But
you're
if
saying.
I can but if I can close the loop with marketing and sales, where sales is asking for business, starting to understand the value of these people, and then they're not ready to buy, and I can hand them to marketing, and marketing and now create content based on like actual solution problems that we're solving and what we're doing, right? Now we're starting to close the loop. Now marketing and sales are talking to each other and helping each other actually finish off closing out these business deals.
Gotcha.
um, I do believe that marketing does their job by here's our brand, here's what we do. But I don't think it's a selfish thing about me necessarily. I think it's just about them understanding, why are we in business? Like, why did we decide to do this? What solution are we providing that we don't believe that anyone else is providing,
Yeah,
right?
but isn't that the
Why
bad marketing? Like, I mean, brand, isn't that just a
Yeah, I mean,
waste of air?
is it what now?
Isn't that, brand to that degree, isn't that just kind of like a waste of air? Like,
Well, I think that's
um,
kind of what you're doing now. I mean, what
yeah.
if you're sending out marketing material, what are you sending out, right? If you don't know the buyer,
But
or
if, but if couldn't you talk to sales and get like the 5 best use cases and then create content for each one of those and just start? I think we can customize a lot more than you see on the marketing side.
correct.
But I
Yep.
think there is also that deeper level that sales can customize beyond. I mean, we can put into groups and buckets, but we can only do that maybe, 5 buckets. We can't get to that, you know, hey, John, this webinar, like minute 12, is going to have this thing that exactly what you talked about on our last
Yep.
call. Check this out. Let me know. We actually have a promo, blah, blah, blah. Right. It's like, you're right. There's no way marketing is going to get to that level of understanding the customer. So we need to play ball. But I wouldn't write marketing off as branding too much, because we
Well,
can,
I hate to use the word branding. I don't like to use the word branding. I
sure.
think it's more just, but marketing, shouldn't be going out there and kind of just throwing everything against the wall at everybody and hoping they get something in return, right? They should be
Agree.
doing the
Yeah,
things that are driving you to want to look into me more, driving you to
totally.
want to understand our solution more, driving you to go and check out our site and to see what we're doing, drive you to the webinars, drive you to the events that we're doing, drive you to, right? And
Yeah.
even the case studies, I think you're 100% right, but that's where I think marketing and sales should be talking. I think sales should be sending case study marketing out.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't. I don't think marketing should, but I think the marketing and sales should be talking about those things, because sales should be saying to marketing, like, hey, like, I would love to, we did this really awesome thing. I think it'd be really cool. Like, marketing, can
Right.
you put it in a good articulate way that we're getting it across to people that is going to be cool and understood. Right.
Right.
And they should be communicating with them on that. Right. This email that I sent to you, right? If he had talked to marketing and talked about a very specific use case and case studies, right? It could
Yeah.
still come from marketing from him, but now it's talking to the specific case study, right? Or something of that nature.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Or give sales the option to put someone into one of 5 different use case type drips instead of just, oh, they're
yeah,
in this industry.
Yeah, I think my point more to what I was saying before is that marketing and sales just don't talk. They don't communicate to each
Yeah,
other.
so
They don't
true,
they
man.
don't help one another through this process. Marketing just yells at, or excuse me, sales just yells at marketing, where are my leads? And the marketing says, well, like, but your sales, you're not helping us understand our buyer in any way, right?
Sure.
And I'm sure that's not the case for all companies, but
There's
for
definitely
many.
that tension, though, for sure. Yeah, and a lot of it's just lack of communication, getting on the same page with the same end goal in mind, and talking to the same buyer, understanding them better together. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I think the marketing is very much, again, like just keeping people aware and keeping them locked in and on the stuff. But that doesn't mean
yeah,
sending them an email every day with something new and hoping that that's going to hit home with them.
right,
You know,
definitely.
so
Don't cold call an email or on the phone.
right,
Yeah,
right, yeah. So it's just interesting to me. Like, I just feel that there's a bit of brokenness there, and I think that
sure.
that people can work better together, because sales can utilize marketing a totally different way that they're not, right?
Right,
And I think marketing can actually utilize sales in a totally different way than
totally.
not, right? So it's really
That's
about getting
why. Oh, go ahead. What was that?
no, go ahead.
I
What
was
is
gonna say
it?
that's why I need a heretic to, like, guys, stop, stop doing what you've been doing. This is not.
Yeah, well, that's it. Don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to
Uh,
go kind of your other point of what Maverick is. The whole idea of Maverick is that a lot of these solutions and these softwares come in, they talk about automation, but nobody actually helps them understand like how the automation could be used to their advantage, right? Or they
yeah,
don't talk about the content. On the marketing side, yes, I think that that's being done, right? But on the sales side, nobody's talking about how can we leverage automation from a sales perspective and not a marketing perspective, right?
right,
How can we start to understand our buyers by automating emails that are personalized, but we're asking for business, and now we're gaining more information back from them simply by starting to just collect data on like who we're reaching out to, and knowing, okay, we thought that this type of person within an organization was our buyer, but what we're finding is that almost every single person we're reaching out to with an IT title is telling us no, and every person we're reaching out to with a sales or marketing title is engaged in some capacity, right?
right.
So we can start to do that. Now, as we build lists over time, we can hand all that information to marketing and say, "Hey, marketing, like here's what we found out actually. So let's start creating content for sales marketing folks, not for IT folks, because I think that you're
Yes,
off a
yes,
little bit, right?"
totally. I mean, that feedback loop is huge.
Yeah, yeah, right. So that's kind of where I think the miss is. But the other part of it is, again, with your time suck. I don't think that sales reps anymore are doing the follow ups and the nurtures. And somebody who says, "Hey, this sounds
Right,
great, Brent. We're not ready for 6 months," or, "Hey, this sounds great. Budget season isn't for." I don't think people are actually setting tasks and going in and contacting those people on a personal level in 6 months as requested,
sure.
right? I mean, because there's going to be a lot more if I reach out to somebody 6 months after they ask me to, me reaching out personally and saying, "Hey, Casey, let's talk. We talked 6 months ago," but there's a lot more from that than if I just send a bunch of marketing stuff to you and hope that you fill out the form at some point, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think that people aren't doing it because they don't necessarily want to. I think because they don't have enough time in their day.
Mm.
And I'd go through, I'd have a million different tasks, and all those tasks would build up. And at some point, I'd open my task list and I'd have so many of them. I'm like, I'm never going to get to these, right? So I just delete them all, and I'm like, oh,
Oh,
I'll just start over, right? But that's what people do, because like you're like, I'm
yeah,
never going to get to these, so I'll delete them. But the amount of business that you lost in there is astronomical,
totally.
because there was probably a ton of follow-ups. So for me, I'm like, well, what if we can just automate that process? What if we can
Right.
automate, personalize, from the rep email, follow-ups
Yeah.
and the nurtures and the touches that need to be touched still, so that those guys aren't, or girls aren't, leaking out of the funnel nonstop.
Right.
All the while we're collecting data and looping back with marketing and actually communicating with marketing about what we're identifying on our side to help them be more successful, right? Which
Makes
in turn,
sense.
if they're more successful, then sales is more successful, right?
Totally. And speaking of success, now now this is appropriately named because I read into a little bit of your background. So the question to you is, who are you? Um, because you've done the sales thing. Now you're running your own shop. You are the self-professed king of the heretics. By the way, you should have some heretical title. CEO, founder. No, no, no.
Yeah, I should
You need
probably come up with
something
something like
that's
that.
that just says, I don't do titles, or I do titles, but here it is. But yeah,
I think you
tell
have
me,
a
man,
career path,
tell me
right?
about, like, I mean, like, what kind of powerful experiences did you have in life? How did you end up where you're at now? I mean, how did you end up going through all this and figuring out where you should be?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that I have a real answer for like how I got here. I
Yeah,
think for me, it was very much just kind of coming up through the ranks and learning. I was fortunate enough to have a father who was an entrepreneur and smart, and from a work ethic standpoint, I think I was able to kind of see what he was putting in. And I started, I think one of my very first jobs was knocking on doors,
oh,
and,
cool.
and trying to sell some promotional thing. And I actually did very well at it. And it was mainly just because it was fine. I got to deal with different people and be in a different place all the time. And,
Yep.
but obviously that wasn't sustainable long-term, being 100% commission job. I mean, this was many years ago, but it did help me with overturning objections immediately, and kind of learning to take a no and understand what was a real no, what was just a don't bother me no, or right
Yeah.
now no. So there was a lot that I took away from it, and then I kind of moved up and took another job, and um, I was in staffing initially. I got into staffing, and that taught me a lot from the standpoint of just really a lot of volume would equal success for me, right? And I knew the volume was going to equal success, but that was at a time when I don't think there was LinkedIn. I actually remember when LinkedIn came out. It was funny, but so you had to learn to do it untraditional ways, and you had to research people and find people in kind of untraditional ways now.
Right.
And I just learned to kind of moved up, and I think a lot of it was fortune, but a lot of it was just how I put myself in good positions. But I had some friends that were working at a company called Dine, in New
Oh yeah.
Hampshire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got in really early with them and learned a ton. They were a DNS company, and still are. They got bought by Oracle, but I learned a ton. Learned about the startup world. Learned about certain things that we were messing up on or not doing right, and kind of just paid attention to it, and paid attention to the folks that were building the company, and paid attention both what they were doing wrong, but all, of course, what they were doing right too, right?
Right.
I don't think I had a really any good experience to what they were doing wrong other than my own feelings, but out there. And then my wife and I ended up moving back to New Hampshire, working for a company, Acquia, in Massachusetts. And then, so good coming up through the digital space. I'd started in digital in San Francisco, but then moved to Acquia, which is Drupal.
So when did this Appalachian Trail happen?
So that happened younger years. I think I was 17, 18, somewhere right around there.
So everyone else is going off to school, and you're like, I'm gonna go hiking.
Yeah, I was like,
That's
I'm gonna go
awesome.
hiking. I'm gonna do this thing, and I did. And
Where'd you
it was
start?
a fantastic experience in Maine.
You start.
Uh,
Isn't that the lonely way though? If you start Maine, you
it,
go south.
Most people go south to north, but given the time of year and what we were trying to accomplish, it was just easier to go north to south. And then we knew that we would end up southern at a warmer time.
Oh,
Um,
smart.
so, yeah. So just the way that it worked out, but we had a large group. There was 10 of us.
Oh no way. Yeah, like friends
We're
from
still there.
school, or
So they weren't. I had actually done it with a group called Outward Bound, which most
huh?
most people
Yeah.
know. And it's interesting because I talk to a lot of people, and they're like, "Oh, isn't that for like bad kids?" And I'm like, "No, it's not for bad kids." But a really, really awesome experience. I mean, we had somebody from Georgia. We had this one from California, a couple people from Canada. I mean, there was just and became very good friends over the period. But it was a really, really interesting experience from both the perspective of the toughness of it, and kind of having to bear through a lot of things.
Yeah.
But also just from learning from other people and learning from kind of their lives and what they were doing and interactions with them. And I mean, it's almost like a giant big brother, right? Because you just put a bunch of people on a trail that don't really know each other, and then they got to spend the next 5 months or 4 months together. So you learn a lot about both yourself and other people. Um, so so it was really really interesting. So to that point, yeah, I mean, I didn't go to school and college. I I think I learned untraditionally, or I say I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I didn't finish school, I should say. I learned a little bit untraditionally, but for me, it was I went out and I explored and I moved around. But I was never afraid to just take an opportunity, regardless of money, and kind of just learn
Nice.
everything I could from it.
Yeah. What was your trail name? Did you get one of those?
I didn't have a trail name. No.
What? I hear it's like a thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is a thing. Generally, it's a thing. If you're on the trail for, if you do different sections at different times, like a lot of times you'll have a trail name for each section to go up through. But also, if you're alone, or if there's like two of you, it's more often that you're gonna have a trail name if there's like two of you, or one of you, just so that people know who you are as you're coming up the trail. So if anything happens to you, or they say, hey, watch for so and so, or
Oh
whatever.
wow, yeah.
So I think we had one girl that had, like, Little Bear was her trail name, just because we called her that, but it wasn't an official trail name. But that was about it. We didn't really go in and get like huge trail names. I think somebody tried. I think somebody tried to give me one, and I honestly forget what it was. But yeah, traditionally you'll see that with loners, very much so. If somebody's on the trail alone, 100% they have a trail name. Again, just because you can't say, well, I passed John, or
Right.
I passed Lisa, right? Like, nobody's they'll be like, I don't know who that is. There's a million people on this trail, right? But
Did
we
you
did
get
have
like,
some.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you get like sick metabolism by the time you were done? Like,
Yeah, very, very much so. So I remember the first day we walked like 2 miles and then camped, and I was like, this is the most terrible thing on earth. Like, what am I doing? And
right.
like 2.5 weeks in, then it became pretty normal. You were, up in the morning, and you could start, and we started to get, 5 miles, and then 10 miles, and then we do 14 miles a day. And I think the
Wow.
most we were doing at one point, I think, was just like 15 miles a day, because we just didn't want to rush it necessarily. I think there were some certain days we had to gain some time back, so we would do more. But or if we had a mail drop and we needed to get to a mail drop, regardless of how far out we were, because we'd gotten lost. So we so we went and ended up coming at 2:30 in the morning, because we couldn't stop. If we
Right.
wouldn't have had breakfast, we wouldn't have, you know what I mean. But by the end of it, I always say that was the most in shape I had ever been in my life coming out of that.
Yeah.
Because then we took a pulling boat on the ocean. A pulling boat is a 10-foot by 8-foot rowboat that has one sail, and if it's not windy, everyone's rowing with these 10-foot oars. And it wasn't windy almost the entire time coming up the coast, so all we were doing is just rowing. So I was just cut, and like metabolism was good. I gained a ton of muscle from rowing, and
Jeez.
yeah, it was. Well,
Hercules,
I mean,
man. Hercules.
well,
That's
it was like
awesome.
forced exercise. You had no
It's true.
choice.
It's true.
so,
It's the best
so
kind.
yeah, exactly right. So it worked out. I'm sure it was similar to your time in the service, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
at a certain point, you just never even think about it.
Yeah. You don't even notice. You
Right.
kind of think that you're just whatever, you're normal. And then people are like, whoa, what happened? Did you
Exactly.
have any like takeaways that even stick with you now to this day about that experience? Um, or is it just fun? Like just a good time, learning
No, it was
time?
a lot of fun. I don't know. My whole perception on how I interacted with people, I think changed then. You know, Not to get too personal, but like, I
Yeah,
think up
get
until that
personal. It's
point,
just you and me listening. I mean,
right? I think up to that point, I was a pretty angry person. I think
mm,
I had a lot of internal, demons that I wasn't, prepared to talk about or get out.
yeah,
And that experience helped me open up to the people that I was with, and to really start talking about some of those things. So I think it changed my perspective on how I interacted with people, and my trust in people, that I could talk to them, and
yeah,
for in any capacity, really. But so that it was a good experience for me in that sense, because it wasn't towards the end, until the end of the trip, that that I really was able to truly come out of my shell, right? It took me
Sure.
that long to do it.
Yeah.
But, then coming out of it, I felt like I was really kind of a totally different person in terms of how I interacted.
Yeah. Imagine if you hadn't worked that off, like, it just sounds like you just needed to just get that out. And nothing helps when you're like angry or anxious or angsty or whatever it is, just changing your physiology, just moving. I got a trampoline in the office, right? I just jump on that before every podcast. But just like weights or walking or just changing up your state a little bit so that
Yeah.
you're not in that zone. But I could see how, maybe even just as a person, you just had these things on you and you kind of walk them off, and nothing would do that better than like miles and miles a day. It's hard to be mad at someone when you're just like so friggin' exhausted. You're like, whatever, I'll see you in the morning.
It's true. Like regardless
Yeah.
of what happened, and you're in your head a lot. So,
Yeah.
I think everybody in some capacity is, but when you're walking, I'm a big snowmobiler too. And so when I'm snowmobiling, I'm hiking, I mean, you're just time in your head. So it's just
Yeah.
time to like really kind of talk to yourself, I guess, if you will,
Yeah.
and kind of, and work through some things. So it was a really, really fun experience, and something that I would, I think about it all the time of like, I would love to go do that again.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever have the opportunity. And I quite honestly don't think I could do it on my own. I don't know how people do it on their own, but there's a lot of them.
I definitely, it's on my list, but what happens, you start adding responsibility, family, kids. Like I can't exactly check out of my kid's life for like 4 months. So it's probably
Right.
like they go to college and I'm like, peace, let's do
Right.
this, let's do this.
Yeah, it is. You ever seen that movie Walk in the Woods?
Oh, I
It's
think
Robert. It's
so.
based on the book about
Yeah.
a guy
Yeah.
who walked the Appalachian Trail, and he essentially did exactly that. He older man, and he just got up one day and was like, "I'm gonna go hike it." And his
Yeah.
wife and kids was like, "I'll see you guys in 6 months." I mean, he only lasted like I forget how long. He only lasted
Oh,
a
yeah. 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 Right.
but same concept. He just kind of was like, "See you later, wife and kids. I'm gone for however long." Um,
I'll be back 50 pounds lighter.
exactly. Yeah. So,
Man,
that
that's
talks
cool.
pretty funny to that. So, yeah. So it was a good experience. I feel like a lot of my life experiences to where I am now really was just kind of a lot of learning. So now I try to talk to clients really just about from those experiences, not necessarily the trail experiences, but experiences with startups and with
Yeah,
the corporations and with the larger companies, and because I've seen a lot of it, and it's been fun now.
that's cool. That's really cool. Huh. Well,
Mhm.
this is awesome, man. Well, what are some of the ways people can chat with you? LinkedIn, Twitter. How can people reach out, connect? Obviously, your website as well.
Yeah, so the website Heretic Tech, HERETICTEC.com, and then same with at Heretic Tech is the Twitter, and email Brent.Hale at Heretic Tech.
See, that's
You
how you
know,
know you're living on the edge like a heretic, throwing out your email on a podcast.
Throwing out my email. Yeah, I have no problem with it. I generally invite people to contact me through my cell phone. I very much believe in actually having relationships with people that I do business with. I believe that, talking through them and actually communicating with them, and, having a personalized relationship in any capacity is a much more successful path forward than, just somebody being another customer.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
you know,
100%.
so
We don't like being treated like numbers, so don't
yeah.
treat other people like numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I can be reached there. We obviously have the forms on our site. And for anybody listening, or really anybody that I talk to, a lot of what I talk about is like, let's just have a conversation. I don't have a clue if there's a fit or not. I believe that there probably is, for a lot of the people that I talk to, but for me, it's just about let's have a conversation and brainstorm, and I'm sure that we can get a lot out of each other just from like you and I, just from
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Just
Uh,
hashing it out.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Um,
Well, thanks so much for coming, man. It's a great conversation. We could chat about, hiking the trails forever, but this has been really cool.
yeah, it's been great. I really appreciate it. I've had a lot of fun. We've talked about a lot, and it's fun to talk about these things. I probably,
Yeah.
your point with trails and everything else. I could talk about all this stuff for days, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Episode 2, 3, and 4. We'll
right,
have to have you back.
right. Yeah,
We'll
exactly.
call it the hiking episode. We'll just talk about nothing but getting out there in the woods.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope there's some valuable information here for people. I hope there's some thinking outside of the box that I've provided that people can think about. But obviously, happy to chat at any point with anybody.
Cool. Good deal, man. Well, thanks so much. And for everyone out there listening, if you learned something or enjoyed this, and I've got a whole page of notes here, so I assume you have. But if you have, share this with someone so you get that message out. Pass that thing along, forward it around so that everyone can benefit from this. And obviously, have a convo with Brent. Have a chat, right? Just that conversation. Have a trail chat with Brent, and let me know how it goes. So. This has been the Hardcore Marketing Show, guys. We'll see you all next time.